What is going on, Guardians? Ember here with another one for you. Today, I wanted to show off a little bit of a build that I made utilizing an underused exotic for Hunter. We're also going to be pairing it with the Devil's Ruin, which in my opinion is one of the most fun fusion rifles in the game. Yeah, I know it looks like a sidearm, but it is in fact a fusion, and it has been so much fun to play around using the little beam that people are not expecting you to toss out at them. Anyway, before we jump into it, let's go ahead down below this video, absolutely obliterate that like and subscribe button. Stick around at the end of the video for an original meme, and don't forget to tell me in the comment section down below if this is the kind of content that you like to see. Let's go ahead and check out that build breakdown so we can get to it. Alright, so let's go over the build real quick here. It's nothing too special. Let's hit our mod customization screen over here first. We all have a lot of mods for our melee and our class abilities to get them back as quick as possible. We want to be taking advantage of invisibility spam as much as we can here with this build. And like I said, we're going to be using Devil's Ruin here. This is a sidearm, but it is also a fusion rifle. It's not a new weapon to the game, so most people probably already know what it is. But essentially, when you hold your trigger down, you're going to either charge up a high-powered beam, or when you release the trigger before the beam fires, you'll shoot a normal shot. It doesn't matter how many shots are in your magazine. If you do have one round even in the magazine and you charge your shot, it will actually refill the entire magazine and shoot an entire burst. So you can be shooting like normal with it. And we're going to be pairing it with the Mechaneer's Tricksleeves here. So the Mechaneer's Tricksleeves are a pretty fun exotic that essentially maxes out the handling of any sidearm that you have. And so you'll be able to pull it out as fast as possible. And if you are put into critical health, that's red health on the top of your screen, you see your health bar go into red. When you swap to a sidearm, you can even just have a sidearm out, swap to your other weapon, and then swap back. But either way, swap to your sidearm, and you're going to get roughly a 33% damage boost, and it does also give you a little bit of airborne effectiveness. So now that we kind of have that all here together, I'll check out our aspects and fragments. We're going to be using Vanishing Step and our Trapper's Ambush, the two aspects that are going to let us take advantage of all that invisibility. I'm using Echo of Remnants to increase the duration of my Void Grenade. We're using Echo of Dilation, which is essentially just giving me a boost to mobility and intellect. It's really not super helpful otherwise. I mean, you can definitely crouch and kind of get a little better idea of where enemies are if they're too far away from you. But since we're using the sidearm, it doesn't necessarily help us out all that much unless you're an absolute expert with the radar. I also have Echo of Leeching here, melee final blows, restart, health regeneration for you and nearby allies, and it also gives us a nice 10 stat bump to our resilience. So now that we got all that out of the way, let's head into it and see what the gameplay looks like. Alright, so Devil's Ruin is incredibly fun. I actually just picked it up a couple of days ago when Iron Banner started so that I could play around with it, because I really just enjoy sidearms in general, and I thought this one was going to be a great pairing for a double primary build. I was not disappointed. If you take nothing else away from this clip right here, it's how much I am just spamming the shot. I don't need to really worry about my ammo usage, right? Because it's really infinite special ammo, and it actually shoots a very, very good distance pretty accurately. You can take your time and really readjust and adjust any of the angles that you're going to be shooting off of. And as long as you can get your pre-charging down, you'll really be having a pretty easy time with it. Even just with the normal body shots with the beam, you're dealing quite a lot of damage. Let's talk about damage numbers before and after getting our Mechaneer's Tricksleeves buff. So before, just the regular shot is going to deal 37 to the body and 51 to the head. Afterwards, just the regular shot is going to deal 48 to the body, 68 to the head, as long as you do have your critical health buff from the Mechaneer's Tricksleeves. When it comes to the beam, it's a little bit different because it ticks. I think I counted about 12 or so times, is how many times it actually counts any of the hits. So we're going to be dealing 26 to the body, 36 to the head before our buff, and 34 to the body and 47 to the head with the buff. And this kill right here was the only one that I actually got to proc the Tricksleeves buff on. It's actually kind of difficult. I have my recovery pretty low. I purposefully stuck it underneath 20 so that I wouldn't be coming out of my red health so fast, so I could really take advantage of that perk. But it was actually really hard to get a decent shot of taking advantage of that activation. And for that specific reason, unless you are really good at pre-charging your shot with the Devil's Ruin here and still landing on a target, I would probably pick something like Gemini Jesters or something like that, so you can take away radar of your enemies so that you don't really have to worry too much about them knowing immediately where you are, or that whatever direction you're coming from, you can actually totally take away their HUD. They won't have any kind of notice of you jumping in the air or anything like that, because when you do jump, even if you are invisible, you will still ping the radar. My favorite things about the Devil's Ruin here, though, is it does have very decent range. You can actually get some pretty deep shots with the sidearm here, especially if you're charging the beam. It hits pretty hard at a decent distance. It has really great recoil control, which also helps at any kind of a distance, but I mean, really just being able to stay on a head or even just on a quick moving Guardian is always helpful. Since it is a fully charged beam and it actually just shoots an actual laser beam, we're going to be able to keep that really accurately on all kinds of our enemies, basically no matter the distance. It does peter out a little bit the damage at any kind of a crazy range, but I mean, it's well within the max range of mini fusion rifles for sure. And probably my favorite thing about it, honestly, is just that it's essentially infinite special. You can absolutely spam it all over the place, and you never have to worry about picking up little green bricks off the ground. I can definitely see if you mastered this weapon and take it into trials, that can definitely throw a lot of people off because they're not going to be able to get special ammo off of your body. And I mean, the Tricksleeves were not totally useless. Pretty much all the time you have 100 handling for any sidearms that you're using, and so that's always helpful, being able to really ADS and swap to a sidearm as fast as possible, especially when it's the Devil's Ruin and you still have to charge it up anyway. That is always a big bonus for you there. Plus the damage bonus from the Tricksleeves, if you're able to get into that critical health, will just absolutely delete Guardians. If anyone has a good clip of them just roasting some Guardian with Tricksleeves buff and the Devil's Ruin, go ahead and send that to me on Twitter. I'd love to see it. As far as the cons for the Devil's Ruin and the build in general, since I was running such low recovery for the Tricksleeve, it definitely hurt a lot of my future engagements and kept me from really being able to go on super long streaks and things like that. The charge time for the Devil's Ruin in general is pretty slow. If you're not careful and if you're not pre-charging before you head around a corner, you will be killed by things like the Immortal that is so prevalent in PvP right now. So just make sure that you're taking your time to line up your shots. Think about when you're going to be seeing enemies, and if they're knowing that you're going to be showing up around a corner at any point, really, go ahead and pre-charge for sure. It definitely will pay off for you in the end. And even though the weapon has very decent range, the aim assist fall off is pretty noticeable once you hit those mid to long ranges, so you really have to make sure that you can keep your reticle on your enemy while you're shooting that beam, or it will kind of just go all over the place and it'll really feel like you're whiffing a lot of your shots. Now, what could be better with this build in general? Like I said earlier, the invis spam could really help you out a lot, especially with enemies being able to see you on radar and things like that through, you know, your jumps or any kind of ability usage beforehand with your invisibility. So pairing that with Gemini Jesters would just be honestly an all-around good thing for you to do. And the biggest suggestion I can give throughout this whole time practicing over these couple of days with Devil's Ruin is really get your charge time down. Know how long it takes to charge it, because if you know that, if you can kind of predict the movements of your enemies or move in such a way that they can't predict your movements, it will really help you to win a lot more of those gunfights. And that's going to be all for me for today. Let's go ahead and throw the meme up on the screen now. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think of the Devil's Ruin. Have you grabbed it from the Monument of Lost Lights yet? Are you a proficient Devil's Ruin user? Have you been using it for a long time? Tell me what you think about it. If you have any tips for it, I'd love to hear that below as well. And I definitely think that the Devil's Ruin is a must-grab from the Monument of Lost Lights. Thanks again, Guardians, and until next time, be without form, swift as lightning.